Welcome to episode 3 of the 5.4 CB1100RS build. In this episode, I'm just going to tidy up the back of the frame, touch it in with paint and stuff. I'm going to get the aluminium single seat tailpiece fitted and the seat base, and then hopefully I can just get a sighting lap on the aluminium nose cone fairing. So let's get started. Right, we've done all the cutting, drilling, filing, etc. to the indicator lugs and the mudguard where we've chopped the end off. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to touch in the bits where I've cut it with black, so round the lugs and round the mudguard and the holes I've drilled so they don't rust. Do you know what, I quite like this because we've done all the hectic bit of the cutting, shutting and filing and that. And I quite like this bit. Obviously, normally I have music on, but I can't do that while we're filming. So that's a bit odd for me. And I'll just use these kind of moments to just chill out, do this. Hopefully I won't spill it all over the bike. And yeah, go from there. And so basically do these while they're drying. I'll start cutting the indicator stalks, the rubber mounts, and the brackets that go inside. They need cutting. And I'll do that, so then this will be dry tomorrow morning. And I can actually put them back on the bike, hopefully for good. I'm sure it isn't. It all comes off so many times. So I'll just give that a quick stir. This paint's been sitting around for a while. I always use this one. I find it's really nice. The brush kind of marks run out smooth. It gives a really nice finish. There will be a bit of trim going on the end of that mudguard as well. This really is to just seal it. It's not really on display. So I'll just give that a quick stir. This tin, look how much is in there. It's still pretty full. That has done 40 bikes of doing just this. I'll just touch it in with this. This is wrought iron gloss, wrought iron fencing paint. And it just goes straight on. You don't need to prime it. And it is just covering up, so it's fine. I degreased that screwdriver before I stuck it in there. You don't want grease in your paint for obvious reasons. So that's that. So first I'm just going to touch this in and see how we go. Hopefully I won't make too much of a mess. I've always got Arnie at Pro Custom who can sort me out if I do foul it up. It's great having him in reserve. So look, I'm just touching these in. Look. I mean, this is underneath the mudguard. You're never going to see this. But as I say, I'll just do it really just where I've nicked the paint, mainly so it doesn't rust. Put it on quite healthily, and then I've found the thing with this is once you've put it on like that, just leave it, and then the brush marks do run out. Well, I think that's got that. We'll leave that now. Needs a tiny bit more on that. You can always go over it again once it's dry. But I think that'll do it. That always looks rough and ready now, but when that dries, I'm sure it'll be fine. Right, so now I'm just going to touch in these lugs where I'll put that down. Just touch in these lugs where I've cut them off, and just touch this in, and it's the same thing. Right, I think that is touched in, so I'll leave that alone now till the morning and come in and have another look at it. If I've missed anything, hopefully it'll be obvious and I'll be able to touch that in. So that's done. So while that's drying, I can start dealing with the actual indicators. Right, while the touch-up paint's drying, I'm going to linish these indicators down and get those ready so that when that's dry, I can bolt these on, because these have to go on first before the rest of the bodywork and stuff. And it's just a nice little job to get out of the way. I'll see this one's had a repair, but not to worry. I assume it works. So yeah, so the first thing, what we've basically got to do, this indicator rubber, I'm going to cut it down to where my fingernails are. So what I will do is cut the majority of it off with a Stanley knife, and then I'll linish it down to just about, probably about a mil or two of that angle is still remaining. So it'll be cut where my fingernail is there. That's about where I'm hoping it'll end up. It's all fairly straightforward, and this has just been trial and error from when I started building these things of how to do it, and I found the easiest way. Having said that, that repair, is that going to... Oh, it does come through. Obviously, normally doing these, I've had the luxury of them not being a used bike, but you can't get them off Honda anymore, so if you want one, it's got to be bespoke built. So I'm relying on people bringing me nice bikes, and this bike generally is lovely. That's the first thing really I've seen that looks anything like second hand. So there's the rubber mount. Now obviously this slots in there, and this bit comes up to the top. Well, when I cut it down, that'll be sticking out miles, so I've also got to cut these down, and I'll show you how to do that. Basically, once I've linished it down, I pop that in the end, mark the end, and then I've got a cut mark, and I just cut it with an angle grinder. So that's that one. These wires just push through. Normally they go really easily like this. It's only that that's had that repair. Someone obviously chopped it in something. There we go. That's that one. So I don't know if I've got a new blade in here. I've got some more there. So what I now do is I don't actually go that near where I want to cut it. I'm just frightened of ruining an indicator rubber. So I don't care even if they're not that even, because I'm going to put this on my linisher in a minute. Right, so that's scrap. It's gone quite near there, but it's still proud of where I actually need it. So this one, same thing. Just put that in. So the thing to do is get these right and then worry about the brackets. So there we are, and now I'm ready to put them on my linisher. That's better. So I just rotate these like this. I get it vaguely near to where I want it, and then I go a bit more carefully. Go there. Well, if you look at that now, see that line, I've got a flat edge there, and if I spin that, you can just see the light picking up on it, hopefully. You can see that's pretty equal. Could do with a tiny bit off there, but I warn you, once you get down to this sort of level, if it looks basically right, walk away. There's a bit more there. I'm pressing very, very lightly now, because that'll take off, you know, 3 or 4 mil in one swipe if you're not careful. Just grazing the surface of it ever so lightly. And look, that's pretty flat as well. So, I don't know if that's picking up the light. If I rotate it, look, that's perfectly acceptable, because it gets compressed a bit when it's on the bike. So I'd say that one's there. So now we've got the other one to try and get the same. So keep that one to hand as a reference, because obviously they've both got to be the same. Doesn't matter if it varies slightly bike to bike, but on the same bike they've got to be the same. Tiny bit more on this end, and then the other end's not bad. It just needs a smidgen more off the whole thing. That'll do. Here's the bracket that goes in the frame. There's the mount. Obviously that goes in there. The wiring comes out of this one. And the beauty of these is that it makes them sort of slightly rubber mounted. It tensions it a bit. It squashes it a little bit. But look, obviously that's way too long now for the indicator head to go on there. So what I do is I just mark that down there with this. Just scratch through the black on it. So I'll just do that, scratch it level, and I go just the other side of it, because obviously that's got to go through the frame, so that won't be hard up against there. There'll be the frame in between that. Just trying to think which way that's going to be when it's in the vise, which side the mark needs to be. It's going to be like that, so it's got to go there. I also have to cut the lower one, but I do that once I've cut this one. So that's, hopefully I can see that. If not, I'll just pop it back in. So look, there's my mark, right by my thumbnail. That's where I'm going to cut that. I'll cut it, well, I'll cut it right on it, I think. Hang on, let me have a look. So that's actually going to end up there. So yeah, it could do with being a smidgen longer than that. So I'm going to cut it just that side of it, so I should be able to see the mark once it's cut. So that's that one, and that goes with that. Keep them in their pairs now, just a case of scratching them really. Hopefully I can see that one. Let's just check. Yeah, there we go. Look, there's a nice mark on there. So right, I'll do this one first. Get that there. And obviously you want to get this reasonably level. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just try and get that level. I kind of use the wall behind roughly. These are very wonky anyway, they always are. I'll just tap that, and then when that goes stiff, I know that's enough. That is very wonky, that bracket. Anyway, so now I'll cut that off. That's that one. How bent that is. That's not me. That's how it was. I might get a spare one of these if I've got one. That one is very wonky. Just going to mark that where I want to cut it. I'll just do this by eye. I don't measure it. All I know is that this has to be a bit shorter than that one. So I'm going to cut that. Think about there. Yeah. So let's just cut this one off. Right. That's that. Now the other thing is, this has to be flat, parallel, or the indicator sits wonkily, because that goes up against a metal bit in the indicator head. So if that's down at an angle, the indicator will be. So I've just got to linish that flat, which I'll do on here. I'll just hold it flat and go for it. Again, I'll do it by eye. So that's that, and then the last little thing to do is get a little file. There we go. That'll do. So then I'll just take the sharp edge off that. It doesn't have to be perfect. Right, I'm just cutting the second one. I've marked it there. I'll do it slightly, fractionally longer, and then the same as the other one, just grind it down, get it parallel. And then I can always tweak it when it's on the bike, but it'd be nice if this works first time. Right, cut that one off. That's that one. Turn it over. Just got to shorten this one a little bit. Just do this one. That's that. Right. So when you look at that, it's not quite level, it's slightly like that. So I'll just level that off on here. That'll do for that. So if I now put that back on here, it's the orange indicator, which is the left-hand side. The wire goes in the back of that. Push that in there, wrong way round. Goes on that way. I'll show you a nice little interesting thing that most Japanese bikes are like this. That goes in there, there's recesses for all those little rubber prongs. And look, it's got a drain hole in the bottom so that any water can get out. So that goes there, that one goes in there, and the wiring goes in that one. Just push it in, feed that in there, and there you go. Ooh. So that's how it'll go. Look, that's nicely shortened. Right, the paint's dry that we touched in on these lugs here that you've already seen me chopping off and drilling. The rear mudguard, the end's been painted and I've put the trim on. So have a look at that. That is just to finish it nicely. And when that's on the bike, that looks really tidy. So that's that done, but that's not the first thing we're going to do now. Today, all I'm really going to do is bolt this back end on, and hopefully I'll have enough time to fit the aluminium tailpiece. Now I've bolted all the plates and bits in it. So in a nutshell, what I've got to do now is, I've already fitted one, fit the other indicator, rear light mount, rear number plate mount, fit this, and then hopefully click the tailpiece on. So next up is the rear indicator that you saw me linishing. So here it is. There's the shortened rubber. Here's the shortened mount. Let me just get this right. The wire goes through that hole there. Feed it through. Here's the mounting bracket. It's got the cutout for the wire. This is all standard Honda. I've just shortened them. It mounts in exactly the same way, and it is rubber mounted. So we shouldn't have any issues. You get that in there. Feed the wire in that clip there. And look, that slots in really nicely. I put Allen bolts in these because the original ones, obviously the original bolts are too long. It's just a 5mm metric Allen bolt to hold that on, and you just bolt that up tight. Just do that up tight. And then I'll just feed the wires in over the top. We're not routing them properly yet. We're nowhere near that stage yet. I'll do all that while it's being painted. So I'll be doing detail when once I've got all this mounted and I'm happy with the fit, it'll go off for paint. So we're just doing the back end at the moment. We haven't even started the front. So look, that's going to go in there. I'll put it underneath this bar just so that when I put the tailpiece on, it doesn't get squashed because the tailpiece rests on this. But all this will be routed really nicely in the clips and what have you. So that's that on, that's it. And these are still rubber mounted, look. That's still the Honda fixing. It is literally just shortened. And I think when the tailpiece is on, these are a nice width. So there we go, look, that's exactly as Honda did it, just a bit narrower. Let me get this right. What do I do next? Right, the next thing, forgive me if I do something out of sequence and have to undo it. The next thing, I'll show it you first. Here's a plate that holds the rear light and the rear number plate mount. This is stainless steel. These rubber pads is made up of two layers. There's a solid rubber and a foamy rubber. that's where the tailpiece rests on that. You don't want metal against metal because that can vibrate and zing, mainly a tick over. It wouldn't when you sat on it, but so that's that. This bolts on here using the original holes in the frame. There were bolts through these anyway. So the first thing to do is remove this seat lock. We take the bolt out, and I'll do this now so that I can hold this lock. Has a locating peg to keep it absolutely straight and in the right place, and it's just held on with this one bolt. And what I'll do is, if you put the plastic bit underneath in the mudguard before you do this, it can be quite tricky to keep that little peg located. So all I'll do is put this in and do it up finger tight, and then I can get the mounting bolts in. So if I can get that started, which I can't for some reason. Hang on, let me check that peg's in. Yeah, the peg's in. This can swivel now until the bolt's in, so it's just a case of aligning that. I'll tell you, this is tricky if you've done it out of sequence. There we go, that's going in. I still need to be able to rotate the plate. It's just to keep that peg in. As long as that's finger tight now, that'll be all right. And then next, let me just get the order right. Yeah, next I've got to put the mudguard with the plastic end plate and the spacers in, hold it in there and get the bolts in and just get that bolted up. So here's our shortened mudguard. Here's the two original dome nuts that held on these lugs here. This piece goes back on, and the easiest way I found of doing this, I'll probably drop it all on the floor in a minute. This plastic plate, that's the original. Here's the spacers that are the original, that goes in there. Let me get these ready to go on. These are just the fixing bolts that go through that plate and hold all this together. And it's all just standard Honda. When I did this bike, I didn't want to reinvent the wheel with it. I wanted to use as much of the original Honda. I wanted it to look bespoke built, but keep all the niceties that Honda did. You know, they design all these beautifully, Honda. So reuse what you can. Let me just think about this now. Yeah. So now that's just resting on there. I used to tape these in and pull the tape out. This just slots into a channel at the front. Ooh, hang on. Why has that not gone in? It's always typical when you're being filmed. It seems to not go according to plan. Right, that's that. And then what I do is I put one of these on just finger tight so the whole lot can't fall out, and I've still got room to jiggle. Right, so that one's going back in. I'll put the other one on as well loosely. So these are just loose. There are no washers on these, but that's how Honda had it, so I'm not going to mess with it. These bolts are for, I hope they're the right length. I've just got to check they are. Yeah, they're the right length. So put that one in. That just stops the spacers coming out at the moment. Obviously, we're going to do it all up tight. But look, this is a lovely line with the rear of the frame, and that was cut with my template. So that's nice. Just put the nuts on these. I put nylocks on these. They didn't originally with Honda, but for me, I want nylocks on there. And also, because I put that plate on, the original bolts aren't long enough. So I have to change it anyway. Hang on. I'm trying to get the nut on the wrong way around, I think. Put the nut and washer on. So all the 5.4s are exactly like this. It took a long time to work it out when I was designing it. When you do it now, you think, oh, that's easy. But when you've got a blank sheet and you're trying to get a tailpiece on that you can release with the key, I didn't want to have loads of spacers. I've had some single seat bikes where trying to get all the spacers in and all that and get the tailpiece off, it was fiddly, really fiddly. But once this is done, that tailpiece just comes on and off with the key. So I'm just going to sort of nip this down a bit. Do you know what? I'm not used to doing these up in the air on a bench. that. I don't need to torque it properly just yet, as long as this plate's down snug. I've wanted to film putting one of these together for a while now. Right, so that's that on. I'm just going to do these up. I'll nip these up. These are just the original Honda fixings. So now I'm just going to, so what happens now is the rear number plate mount and the rear light bolts to this. Again, I'm not going to fuss about the wiring on this. I'll just tuck it under that bar so it doesn't get squashed for the time being. I'm not even going to connect it up. You know, I've not chopped any wires or anything. So this can be fiddly now, so bear with me. So here's the rear number plate mount. That goes on there. That goes on there. These normally fall out before I get both of them in. I'll drop at least one of these normally. That goes on there. So you're getting an idea now of what the back end of this is like. It needs the reflector mount bolting on that little hole down there. Again, down the line. Don't need that on there to check the tailpiece fit. Right, so that's that on tight. It's got the mud guard in. Just feed this under the bar again. Not worried about connecting it. Put that under there. That one goes, that little bend goes there. This pad's narrower this side for the wire to come through, but it sits on there perfectly happily, and there's a rubber snubber there. So, right, that's the rear light mounted. I already fitted this, we filmed that. So now, I'm kind of ready to put the, well, try and put the tailpiece on. It normally takes a little bit of tweaking here and there maybe with the brackets to get it on there. And the main thing I'm looking for is the right clearance between the tailpiece and the side panels. And obviously around the rear light, and just generally does it look right. So yeah, next onto the tailpiece. This is the beautiful, I'm very proud of these. This is the 5.4 CB1100RS single seat tailpiece in bare metal. It's all bolted up. Now look, we'll cover the bolting it up and the component parts of it down the line once it's painted. All I'm interested in today is fitting this and check the fit, that it's all beautiful, because you don't want to be modifying this once it's painted, because the paint is very intricate and my God, you need to do this first. So always do a dry build and check everything's okay, so any modifications are done long before you paint it. The paints and the seat padding are the final things. We'll do them down the line. So look, the little badge goes in there. It's got the seat base bolted to it. It's got the rubber blocks that sit on the frame. They're out the original seat, and I've glued a 4mm thick bit just to raise it up a little bit. I needed to do that for this. And it's got the sort of like aluminium little blocks here that locate this in two holes that are already in the frame, and that sits on the slipper plate. So hopefully I've bolted this up, and because I've done 50 of them, they normally fit pretty much first time. And you could say, oh, why didn't I just send it in for paint? But no, take your time, bolt it up, double check it, and then it can go for paint. So look, hopefully the first time you do this, they can be a little bit tricky. That just mounts as normal, goes round the tank mounting bolt. It's gone in, those bobbins have gone in the holes in the frame, so that's good. And there we go, I should have an 8mm gap at the front here. The leather comes over the front of this and takes this gap up, and obviously your padding's in here. These bolts are too long. You wouldn't have those in there on a final assembly because you don't want to be sitting on them. But just for this, it's fine. And check that out. Now what I'm looking for is clearance between the seat and the side panels, because if when you put your legs down, that will put pressure this side, that this can't contact the side panel and mark the paint on it. So that's this gap here. I'm happy with this side. Let me check that side. Yeah, that's cool. The gap is your 8mm gap here, and I like the lines of it. It doesn't look like there's any wobbles in it or anything. And when Arnie paints these, they look fantastic. This is a bespoke build. The standard production ones were done in an enamel red and blue and white. This one, and I suggested this to him, and luckily he's gone with it. This is going to be candy red, candy blue, and pearl white. And also, unlike the production ones, he's having a stripe down the front of the fairing. So I've done one in this paint job before. It was number 54, and it had Lucky Last written on the back because it was the 54th one of the limited edition. He's just having my signature on here, which I'm flattered about. He saw it on the 1000, which when you order one of them brand new off Honda, you can either have it with or without the signature. But he wants a signature on this and candy paint. And I know that this in candy paint with the black number board and the 54 badge, this is going to look fantastic. And I'm happy with that. And look, this comes off really easily. You turn the key and that's it. And you've got access to your tool tray and everything when it's in there. So this is what I set out to achieve, was just a really cool retro single seat tailpiece, clicks on. Right, so that's that done. I am happy with that. I will give it another going over when we're not filming. But as far as I can tell, briefly, that's spot on. So what we're going to do next is strip the front and get the headlamp mounts, which I collected today off Danny at Fast Tech. He's a mate of mine, and he's made bits for quite a few bikes I've built. Just follow me, Harry. We'll go up to the front. Here's the mounts. They're machined from billet. You need quite a big block to do that. That's for the other side, because we're this side. I'll unwrap this one. So obviously there's a pair of these. And these are billet. I wanted them really strong because they're taking the weight of the fairing. These would do the job, but the problem with these, that when I did the prototype and I tried to get my sort of fairing cowl, whatever you want to call it here, it was very vertical here. I wanted the headlamp an inch further forward. So these are, actually it isn't, which side is it? No, it is that one. Oh, they're the wrong side. They're in pairs. These are the right-hand side. But basically, it's upside down. But you can see this is an inch longer than that. That bolt ends up here, and these are billet. And they use the standard mounts. So next, we'll be stripping the front. All these this horn mount has to come off, and I've got another horn mount that goes on because these are too big to get inside the fairing. So we'll be stripping the front off, putting this on, and then test fitting the fairing, because yet again, you know, you don't want to be modifying that once it's painted. And the other thing, I just put some bullet connectors on these indicators. You know, when I build custom bikes, you don't have to do that. But what it means is when you want to get the fairing off, you then have to get this rim off, take these screws out to disconnect the indicators inside the headlamp. You'd have to get a mate to hold the fairing while you got the rim off. The fairing would get in the way. So by putting a bullet connector in here, these wires, you can pull them out and the connectors are outside the fairing. So the indicators can stay on the fairing and you don't have to get this rim off. It's just, I know from years and years of building and working on bikes, you don't want it fiddly to get the fairing off. So to get the 5/4 fairing off, you do the two mounting bolts, one either side and one underneath, pull the wires out, disconnect the bullet, and you can lift that off and put it on the bench with the indicators still on it. So I will have to rewire these. All the actual heads and bodies are the same, but it's just put a couple of bullet connectors in. And that makes your life so easy when you're working on the bike. So yeah, strip the front off, bolt these on, put the headlamp back together, put the new horn mount on, and then put the fairing on and check the fit that it's all equal and beautiful. So that'll be the next thing we're doing.